Yeah.
Um, you've mentioned a few bands there, sort of Cortinas, Wombats, came through a similar time to Pigeon Detectives. So, what do you think, sort of that noughties indie? What do you think the impact is today? How do you reflect on that?
Um, I think we were all arguably lucky, right place, right time. I think bands like in the early noughties, like the Strokes, kind of hit England, and people were like, wow, these are good. And then the Libertines smashed it, and I think influenced a lot of bands and influenced the industry as well. And then off the back of that, you kind of saw bands like ourselves, The Enemy, The View, the Fratellis, Cortinas, all these bands started rolling out, and it was a fantastic time. And obviously, we feel lucky that we still exist as a band. We're still going. We're still all mates. Fighting on stage. Unfortunately, and
Mentioning
that
no names there,
mentioning no
please.
names there. And yeah, and we've still got a fan base that still buy tickets and records. Yeah, we bands like Cortinas are a lot bigger than us. Wombats are bigger than us. We understand that. We appreciate that. Don't know why, don't know why if that's like a label thing or just better songs or whatever, but we all know them personally. They're all good lads, and we all kind of look out for each other to a certain extent. It's great catching up at festivals and stuff, and um, yeah, I'm glad that they're all still going as well, kind of flying the flag for the noughties bands, and we're doing the same. So yeah, it was a good time, and a lot's changed since. We're talking about the Blossoms, and there's been nowhere near as many bands come out really, and the Blossoms are kind of only one of a few, and what have done well at least. But when we came out, there were dozens of bands really. I've just named half a dozen off the top of my head that were all big bands. So
Yeah.
yeah, it was a good time in the noughties, and we still feel
Yeah.
lucky that we still exist in the 20s.
Do you think that era could ever be repeated? And kind of, if not, what is it? What's the reasons as to why not?
I think music goes round in waves, and I think
Mm,
in the noughties the guitar era were at the peak of its wave, and then we released our third album in 2011, and you could see that wave were dropping.
mm,
We failed to get on Radio One for the first time, and we're a bit of a blow 'cause at that point it were massive to be on Radio One. But then when you were listening to Radio One, I think there was stuff like dubstep were really big at that point, really mad stuff like that, and it was so
mm,
far detached from guitar music. And then when the industry and the radio stations are playing a different genre, you just don't really have a chance. And the the mass public are not being exposed to this type of music, and then off the back of that, other things sort of fail. Not fails the wrong word, but change. So music magazines or online things, and maybe not writing so much about as guitar bands. It's more whatever's popular at the moment. So I think it goes around in waves, but I do feel like the guitar wave is starting to come back. I really do, and I think there could be a point where it'll come back, and hopefully more bands will be sort of put in the spotlight, and there could be a second wave. Um,
mm,
well, say second wave is more than two waves in the whole history of music, but
mm,
maybe another notice type thing where quite a good few bands come through. But I
mm,
do feel like this hypothetical wave is starting to pick up a little bit. Feel like there's a bit of a hunger for guitar bands and that sort of thing. Go
mm.
to go to festivals, and there's a big crowd still. People want it.
Yeah. But it's
Bands
never
like
dropped off, has it, at festivals? It never seemed to drop off in popularity, but that's why it's interesting that you say, is it like sort of dictated by that radio change?
I think that's a big. I think it's a big influence for sure.
Mm,
You know, you, Leeds Festival, Leeds Reading Festival as a whole, we absolutely love. We used
mm,
to go to Leeds festivals as punters years ago on camp, and we've been lucky to play every stage in our career, all the way up to the main stage. And
mm,
um, we've got a special place for that in our hearts. But when you go every year, you see the lineup, and it's very different to what it was a long time ago
yeah.
when we were first going, and then even when we were playing, it was just all pretty much guitar music. But now there's a lot of there's various bits of pop, there's various bits of R&B,
Yeah.
and that sort of thing, which is fine. I totally get that, but I think
Mm,
they've had to maybe adapt
yeah.
to get that to keep selling the tickets. So it's interesting when you sit back and observe it all, but there's still a hunger for it for sure,
Mm,
and I think a, like I look at our audiences, bear in mind we've been going 20 years, there's still 17, 18-year-old kids on the front row, and
yeah.
they were they were babies when we were releasing our first album. So
Yeah.
it kind of
So,
goes to show there's still people that want that sort of music. But I think if the bigger picture starts playing it a bit more and whatnot, and it exposes a bit more people, it could come back again.